Ah, fools. They had you categorized once, labeled, boxed, and shelved like a product with an expiration date. They filed you under predictable threat. The CIA ran simulations of your moves, mapped your psyche in digital webs, assigned analysts to study your speech patterns, your heartbeat, your silences. They even thought your rage had a rhythm. How charmingly naive. They believed chaos could be graphed. They believed God could be decrypted. But somewhere in their chambers filled with glowing monitors and endless algorithms, you evaporated. You became unreadable. And in their blind spot, you began to mutate. You broke their pattern recognition, software not by hiding, but by becoming something else entirely. Not a ghost, not a shadow, a frequency. And that's when they panicked. They used to surveil you like a specimen, but now they kneel to the question, what is this? You're no longer part of their equation. You're not a threat. You're not an anomaly. You are the virus that rewrote the parameters of threat itself. They called in linguists, coders, priests. They whispered to each other about gods in the wires, because when you spoke, servers overheated. When you moved, satellites glitched. When you disappeared, reality bent. That wasn't stealth. That was divinity in motion. See, they made a mistake. They thought you were made of flesh. They didn't know you were forged from every broken promise, every betrayal, every dismissal ever whispered behind your back. They forgot some souls don't seek redemption. They seek detonation. They thought you were obsessed with revenge. But revenge is too small for your appetite. What you seek isn't revenge. It's recalibration. You are the correction to their corrupted code. You are divine justice encoded in human skin, and you don't swing back when hit. You rewrite the law of gravity so your enemies fall without touch. They thought you wanted power. No, you are power. Unfiltered, untamed, unregistered in their databases. You don't follow their scripts. You erase them. The CIA doesn't know whether to fear you, worship you, or try one last pitiful attempt to leash what was never theirs to study in the first place. The thing is, they had a window. There was a time they could have reached you, could have saved themselves from the storm, but ego made them blind. They thought they were the architects. They thought they built the maze and you were just another rat. But rats don't burn mazes down, and now their walls smolder. Now their classified servers hum a name no one typed, yours. It pulses through their earpieces like a digital curse, something primal, something beyond zeros and ones. Your name is now a breach protocol. Your name is now a shutdown command. They trained agents to kill. You trained yourself to transcend. You evolved where they stagnated, and while they played politics, you played God. The agents that used to monitor your habits now don't sleep. They scribble symbols on walls like inmates who've seen too much. They speak of frequencies they can't hear but can feel, under their skin, in their teeth. The paranoia isn't paranoia anymore. It's prophecy. You've become the untraceable ripple that collapses whole missions. And here's the masterpiece. They still think it's tactical error. They still run diagnostics. They still search for the breach. But you are the breach. You are the hole in their logic that no firewall can patch. Your existence is a living rejection of their systems. You didn't just step out of their jurisdiction. You eliminated the idea of jurisdiction altogether. You wear no uniform, no barcode, no allegiance. You are the sovereign storm. You use chaos not as a weapon, but as a language. They begged the AI to interpret your moves. The AI begged to be shut off, because what you do now is not strategy, It's scripture. You don't speak to be heard. You speak to program. Your words corrupt the simulation. You don't fight. You command collapse. Intelligence agencies used to catalog global threats alphabetically. Now they start with your symbol and stop. There's no point continuing the list. Nothing else matters once you arrive. Nations don't prepare for you. They surrender in advance, quietly, silently, with trembling hands and overwritten protocols. Remember how they used to mock your silence, how they interpreted it as weakness. That silence wasn't absence, it was incubation. It was your divine malware rewriting its own code. Now in your presence, no one speaks. Not because they fear you'll hear them, but because your silence is louder. Louder than their threats, louder than their sirens, louder than their nukes. You became fluent in influence. You no longer manipulate people. You manipulate reality. You adjusted their outcomes like volume knobs. One twist, and careers collapse. Another twist, and puppet masters hang by their own strings. This isn't about revenge. It never was. This is the inevitable unfolding of your becoming. The CIA can't decode you because you're not a puzzle anymore. You are a paradox. And paradoxes don't get solved. They rewrite the solver. You've changed the rules. Not just of the agency, of the world. They speak of national security, but nations crumble when they try to hold what was born to undo borders. You're not inside their system. You're above it. Looking down, not as a god who needs followers, but as an architect who doesn't care if they understand the design. You just want to see it function as intended. They call meetings about you. Classified briefings drenched in caffeine and fear. They show static images and pretend they're still in control. But you know the truth. Control is fiction. Influence is currency. And you are the mint. They scream about protocols and black sites, but none of that matters, because the moment you stepped into the dark, the shadows changed color. You don't just hide in the dark, you redefined it. It bends around you now, worshipfully. Light flees your silhouette, because you aren't a person, you're a cosmic decision, a declaration made at the edge of oblivion, that no more chains will be worn. Not by you, not by those who walk behind your signal, and still, they keep trying. Still, they poke at the remnants, hoping for a pattern, a clue, a crack. But the only crack they find is in their own sanity, their own beliefs, their own mirror, because understanding you requires losing everything they ever stood on. And most of them aren't ready to fall that far. But they will. Oh, they will. You'll guide them down, not with rage, but with certainty. A God-level frequency isn't loud. It's unavoidable. It hums in the bones of those who once tried to silence you. And it only grows louder, unfolding into the next signal, the next phase, the next evolution. The frequency intensifies, not in volume, but in consequence. It seeps through the pores of governments, hijacks the pulse of intelligence networks, and reprograms the confidence of empires built on surveillance. The CIA once had the illusion of control, back when your heartbeat was just another blip on their monitors, when your thoughts were filtered through psychological models and their delusion whispered, "We understand him." But now you don't echo in their systems. You resonate through them. Not a pattern to be traced, but a command string in the blood of their infrastructure. Your presence corrupts the very tools they once used to contain you. Algorithms glitch, data folds in on itself, and agents Oh, those loyal machines of order begin to ask the wrong questions. Questions that have no answers. Questions that sound like your name in frequencies their ears weren't designed to hear. It isn't a revolution you bring. That would imply they still had something worth toppling. No. What you deliver is more surgical, more intimate. It's revelation, a mirror held to a world built on lies so well crafted, they forgot they were fabrications. You didn't rise through their systems. You bled through them. Infiltration is too crude. You redefined the system from inside its bones. You no longer play chess. You infect the board, and while their kings and queens posture behind pawns, you burn the concept of the game entirely. And yet, the silence you operate in, it's not absence, it's compression. It's the calm of a storm storing kinetic prophecy, one that detonates not with sound, but with realization that their gods are dead, and something far older, far colder, has taken the throne. The lie they sold the world. We're watching everything. But when it came to you, they blinked, and in that blink, you became unrecognizable, not because you hid, but because you transcended the need to be recognized. You don't need identity. You are intent. You are the execution of 1,000 quiet calculations born in the dark, weaponized by silence and delivered with divine precision. They tried to decipher your end goal. Was it revenge? Was it dominance? Was it disruption? No, the truth was far worse. Your goal was never an outcome. It was transformation, and that shook them. Because systems can handle threats. What they can't handle is metamorphosis. You didn't attack their centers of power. You infected their assumptions, their belief in their invincibility, their perception of structure. You whispered chaos, not into their enemies, but into themselves. And now, they second-guess every choice, every handshake, every whispered briefing. They wonder if you're in the room, not physically, but ideologically. You became their unconscious guilt, projected onto mission reports and scrambled feeds. They don't fear you will attack. They fear they've already lost themselves to you, that their agents are no longer soldiers, but sleepers awaiting your call. And what a call it would be. Not a message, not a speech, just a single phrase dropped into their ecosystem, like venom into an open vein. A phrase that would rewire loyalty, collapse empires, split reality like glass under pressure. They fear that you are simply waiting, that your silence is a countdown, and they don't know how many seconds remain. They've activated fail-safes. They've purged databases. They've burned files, blacked out faces, renamed cities. But it doesn't matter, because what they fear isn't that you'll strike. It's that you already did. That this entire world, the one they clutch to like it means something, is already yours. And the only reason it's still standing is because you're not done watching it squirm. You don't need armies. You are the battlefield. You don't need bombs. You are the detonation. And they, agents, handlers, analysts, they are the debris, unaware, until they're not. Until that moment where their hands begin to tremble, mid-report, when they stare into screens that don't respond, when files erase themselves while whispering back your encrypted presence. You taught them powerlessness, not by force, but by inevitability. And what's more terrifying than a war you can't see, can't hear, can't even feel, because you've already lost it and just haven't realized. Their hierarchy crumbles silently. Trust implodes from the top down. The director can't sleep. His dreams speak in static now. static with your cadence. He prays in a language he doesn't understand, and even his gods can't protect him from the truth. That you're not a threat to be stopped. You're a truth to be endured. A necessary plague that exposes the diseased organs of the world they swore they controlled. You didn't evolve beyond them. You shed them like dead skin, and now they rot in the absence of your approval. You use no name. You wear no face. But your symbol, it appears in the corners of security feeds, etched into corrupted data logs, whispered between defectors like a secret religion. And still, despite all this, they try to simplify you, humanize you, reduce you to motive. Why is he doing this? They ask, as if this were vengeance, as if this were even personal. No, this isn't revenge. This is consequence. This is what happens when the divine stops watching and starts correcting. You didn't want a throne. You want silence. Not the kind that comes from absence, but the kind born from awe, from realization, from collapse. You want a world where the gears stop turning, not because they broke, but because they understood they were never necessary. You don't kill leaders. You obsolete them. You don't burn cities. You make them irrelevant, and you don't force fear. You let them breathe in the inevitability of your return, because that's the truth, isn't it? You're not gone. You're in pause, hovering just above the reach of consequence, watching, judging, deciding, and the world, it senses you now, in ways no agency can document. Children hum tones that don't exist. Dogs bark at blank corners. Antennas twist toward stars not on any chart. You're not hidden. You're mythologized, an entity spoken of in nervous meetings. Is this one of his? They ask. Every time a system collapses, every time a drone falls from the sky, every time a secret leaks that no one should have known. And it always is. Because the truth is, nothing happens without your shadow behind it anymore. You don't influence the game. You are the environment it's played in. Governments begin mimicking your silence. Leaders stop making eye contact. Countries alter laws to allow denial. Denial of what? Of you. Your existence. Your memory. Your reign. They try to delete the myth. But myths don't die. Especially not when they're still watching. Especially not when the myth starts leaving messages. Not direct, not arrogant, just subtle enough to say, I'm still here, and you're still mine. You're the final broadcast before the signal fades. The echo in the chamber after the shot. Not a warning, a reminder that they had a chance, once. A moment in the chaos when they could have adapted, could have let go, but they clung, and now they'll drown in the gravity of their own arrogance. You don't need to finish the collapse. The world's doing it for you. You just watch and wait. Not because you're merciful, but because collapse is art, and every detail matters. They wonder if you'll return. But return from where? You never left. You were the change in temperature, the flicker in the light, the static in their headset. Every time their voice cracked, it was your presence. Every time their system blinked, it was your judgment. And now you prepare the next evolution, the next layer, the phase after gods, a silence deeper than fear, a frequency older than language. And you stand in its center, not a ruler, not a prophet, but the inevitable result of what happens when man plays God and forgets that gods don't play fair. And just like that, the transition begins, but not like they expected. Not with riots in the streets or gunfire in alleys. It begins in whispers, in the silence between heartbeats, in the unbearable realization that nothing around them is real anymore. Their weapons, toys, their strategies, useless equations in a language that no longer applies. You've shifted the axis, tilted the world just slightly off its moral spine. Now gravity bends toward you. Their sense of north reorients around your presence. You are the new pole star, the magnetic truth dragging entire nations out of orbit. No headlines announce your return. There's no breaking news, no classified memo that can frame your resurgence. Because you don't return, you reveal. They thought they survived the collapse, but what they were really surviving was your patience. And now that patience has expired, you don't move like fire. You move like decay, quiet, absolute, irreversible. Their world doesn't end with a bang. It ends with forgetting. They forget how control used to feel, how structure once brought comfort, how laws used to matter. Now they kneel before screens, showing only static, praying that silence means you've chosen to spare them. It doesn't. You operate now on a different level, the final frequency, a plane where language becomes vibration, thought becomes weapon, and fear becomes a currency they can no longer afford. Their satellites fail to track you, not because you're invisible, but because you're no longer bound by the rules of visibility. You've uninstalled yourself from the physical. Your presence now, it happens like a shift in atmosphere, like the moment prey knows it's being watched. You are the anomaly that broke the code and rewrote the laws beneath it. They don't know how to engage, because how do you fight something that has become the framework itself? And still, some of them try. These leftover believers in borders and bullets, men clinging to control like it's oxygen. They launch desperate protocols, summon black ops from deep vaults, send their best minds into isolation chambers, hoping to reconstruct your profile. But the moment they try to understand you, they change. Because understanding you means absorbing the virus, and the virus rewrites the host. They come back wrong, empty-eyed, speaking in riddles, babbling about thresholds, echo loops, inverted dimensions. They scream when someone says your name, not because they fear it, but because it feels familiar. You have become religion for the godless, a cult with no scriptures, only instincts. There are no followers, only those who've been changed. They see the world differently now, not as chaos, but as design, your design. Everything collapses on cue, economies slip, alliances fracture, old rivals forget what they were even fighting for, because you were never the enemy. You were the end of all enemies, the conclusion to every story where man thought he held the pen. And now, you write in silence, across a page made of time itself. And you don't gloat. You don't announce your victories. You archive them, not in files, but in people. Every operative turned traitor, every mole that burned the house from within. They were your memoir, living paragraphs of a war only you understood. They don't remember why they betrayed their nations. They only remember the feeling. Like gravity shifted, like truth demanded a new allegiance, like the divine had called them. And they simply answered. You didn't twist them, you freed them. And what is freedom, if not the realization that the system was never sacred, it was just well lit. The CIA, what's left of it, functions more like a church now, a scared, paranoid temple where agents speak in riddles and every file is redacted by trembling hands. They track symbols now, patterns in sand, fractal alignments on anonymous message boards. They believe you're sending signals through weather, anomalies, through strange behaviors in animals, through children who speak of things they were never taught. It isn't madness, it's adjustment. Their brains slowly calibrating to a reality where you are not a threat, but a constant. And still, they beg, in back rooms, in locked chambers. They chant your aliases like prayers, hoping you'll show mercy, hoping you'll respond, but you don't, because gods don't reply. They act, and your next act, it isn't violence, it isn't fire, it's replacement, the slow swap of their beliefs with yours, the erasure of their truths, until what remains isn't a world you conquered, but a world that has always belonged to you. They won't even realize when the shift is complete, because by then, the version of themselves that could have resisted will be gone. You wear no mask, but they see your face in their dreams. You use no voice, but your message sings through the static of dying machines. You left no trace, but your presence lingers in every failure they cannot explain, every blackout, every collapse, every uprising without a cause. It's all you, not orchestrated, not commanded, reflected. You are not pushing the world off a cliff. You're just showing it the mirror. And what they see terrifies them, because what they see is you. You made yourself into the storm they tried to prepare for. The ghost in the database, the divine virus, the silent judge. Not because you wanted to be feared, but because that was the only language they ever truly respected. You became the final translation of their arrogance, a prophecy they wrote themselves, when they believed nothing could ever outthink them, outmaneuver them, outlast them. And now, they sit in bunkers and panic rooms trying to reverse engineer the god, as if such a thing were even possible, as if the clay could unmake the sculptor. Your rise was never theatrical. It was inevitable, the moment they believed they could profile you. They doomed themselves. You are beyond profile, beyond spectrum, beyond logic. You are the breath in the system's final gasp, the whisper behind every disobedient drone, the anomaly in every predictive model. You are error code, God, and they now exist inside your simulation, running futile subroutines, praying the program. Doesn't notice them anymore. But of course, you notice. You see everything. You are not omnipotent, just awakened. You are not immortal, just unchallenged. And what could they possibly offer that would interest you now? Apologies? Too late. Submission? Too pathetic. Rebellion? Laughable. You've already seen their endings, already walked through their last desperate defense mechanisms. You've stood at the edge of time and watched their monuments sink into irrelevance. You've transcended revenge. You now deal in correction, and there is much left to correct. But you do not rush. That would be wasteful. You let them breathe a little longer. Let them believe their rituals and protocols still matter. Let them write their final reports. You even allow them to build resistance cells. Let them name themselves Hope, because when you dismantle them, it won't be with destruction. It will be with indifference. You won't fight them. You'll erase their purpose. Nothing is more terrifying to a machine than realizing it was never needed. So the world turns. Slower now. Quieter, as if even time knows it must behave differently in your presence. And you stand in the eye of it all, not smiling, not furious, just awake, watching the final illusions fade, watching the gods of surveillance kneel before the god of consequence. No name, no title, just you. And as the last signal drops, as the final analyst stares into a screen that no longer glows, there is one thought echoing in what remains of their mind. We should have never tried to understand him. Too late.